Welcome everyone to the 3-day international virtual workshop on researching, writing, and publishing, jointly organized by Lavender Literary Club, Cap Comoran Trust, and Malaysian Industrial Relations and Human Resource Association, Malaysia. Now I invite Dr. Jagosen Jiresh, Assistant Professor, Department of English and Cultural Studies, Christ University, Bangalore. Dr. Jagosen Jiresh will act as a moderator for first session.
Thank you. Revered organizers of this event, scholarly audience, and renowned speaker for this evening. It's my pleasure to introduce the speaker to you for this session and also to moderate the session. I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity, and it's, as I told you, it's my pleasure to introduce this eminent speaker who's going to deliver his talk, share his expertise with the scholarly audience this evening. Dr. Evan Love Pohawk, the Associate Professor from the Faculty of Economics and Business, University of Malaysia, Sarawak, is the eminent speaker we have this evening. And he has a lot of accomplishments in his credentials. And what I understand from going through his profile is that his urge for learning and also the equally potential urge to share things, share what he has learned with the academic community has made him an eminent resource person and also an academician of high repute. He has learned a lot and he has equally contributed to the world of scholarship by writing papers and also by guiding students in his illustrious career. That's the reason why I said his urge for learning and sharing ideas has brought him thus far. So a quick review or a quick recap of his achievements I would like to share with the scholarly audience this evening. Professor Evan Love serves as the Associate Professor in the Faculty of Economics and Business, University of Malaysia, Sarawak. He was the Deputy Dean for Research and Postgraduate at Faculty of Economics and Business from 2016 to 17, and the Director of Center for Business Economics and Finance Forecasting, UNIMAS from 2013 to 16. He holds editorial positions in numerous international journals that are indexed in Scopus and Web of Science, and also he is the associate editor and editor of journals published by Taylor and Francis and many other reputed publication houses. He was at the Faculty of Economics at Cambridge from October 2013, a coveted position he was holding till 2014 April as a visiting scholar. He was appointed as a visiting professor in University Sebelius Maret from July 2019, and with universities Ham Warak from February 2021 to August 2021. He was selected for the World Class Professor Program by the Ministry of Education and Culture, Indonesia, twice in 2020 and 2021. He was appointed the Visiting Research Fellowship for the Central Bank of Malaysia in May 2021 for a year. Professor Evan speaks at numerous international conferences. As I told you before, he likes to share his expertise and the knowledge he has gained through voracious reading and writing in countries like India, UAE, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Italy, Philippines, and Malaysia. Besides, he's also an active academic workshop instructor. He provides lectures, consultations, and supervisions to students and receives positive evaluations from both the undergraduate and postgraduate students as well. So we find him as a teacher, researcher, and also as an administrator. He's a three-dimensional person who's here with us to share his expertise. He often shares his life story and research findings in the class. Today, his journal articles are journal article publications stand at 106, and he has 90 research papers published as chapters in books, conferences, proceedings, working papers, newsletters, and newspaper articles. He has received numerous awards for his excellent service as a teacher and researcher. And to date, he has got 83 postgraduate students under his supervision. He has examined 63 postgraduate theses and 142 undergraduate research projects. As an active teacher and an effective researcher, he has been awarded a total of 28 research grants, which stands as proof for his academic excellence and integrity. He was listed among the top 9% of economists in Malaysia since 2008 and the top 10% in Asia since 2012 by the Research Papers in Economics database. He's among the highly cited authors in Unimas. Apart from the academic journey, he has joined several running events and enjoyed traveling around the world as well. So with these words, I'm really happy to welcome you to this event, sir, and the scholarly audience here will largely be benefited by your expertise this evening here. Thank you, all of you. Thank you once again for the organizers for giving me this opportunity to introduce the distinguished speaker this evening. We are all eager and we are waiting, listening to you. And I hope the deliberations will be of great use to the audience here in this virtual gathering. I'll join at the end of this talk to help and facilitate the discussion after Professor's lecture this evening. Thank you. Over to you, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the, I hope everyone can hear me loud and clear. Thank you very much for the kind introduction in this evening here, and I'm very honored and grateful to be here to be talking or to all of you here. I hope that my presentation of what I'm going to share this particular evening going to be benefited for all of you, right? So in any chance that you can't really hear me, you can always mention to me as I would do not know whether you can. Actually, let me share. I have some. All right. Thank you very much for having me here this particular evening. I'm very grateful, as I mentioned just now. So what I'm going to share in this particular evening for the next, at least, for the next like 30 minutes to 40 minutes will be about this model, which is very useful, especially for publication and for writing up a proper article, proper research for publication itself, right? Let me just go to it. So this is the menu for this particular evening. I'm going to talk about a bit of sharing on how to nurturing research culture, especially in the universities or within the organization itself, or within the department itself, or within the group, a group of researchers, among ourselves. Right? And the second one will be on the IMRAT model, and then how we can move forward in that sense. Just now, it's been read by the moderator on part of what I did as part of the researcher and academician itself. And this is like infographic of what I have this for the past 17 years that I'm with the University Malaysia Sarawak here in Malaysia. Right, so the first part will be on nurturing research culture that I want to share a little bit on how actually we could, the department itself or an organization itself in a much more bigger picture, or even in a much more smaller group of our own friends and research group by itself, can build this culture itself. And the culture itself should be embedded, should be something that we can nurture from time to time, and it brings motivation to the rest. And I hope this particular evening that my talk here, my sharing here would enhance further the research culture within your university, within your department, within your own research group. So research culture itself actually do what I believe in is a reflection of the value or standard of belief of research within an organization. So each organization should have their own so-called standards or an ideal kind of thing they want to achieve. It talks about the culture itself, but how to build this culture itself, perhaps it's not something just happens in a day or happens overnight. So So as what by the definition here, it reflected in research behavior, research action, and research symbol of the organization that contribute or that develop this research culture, and that would build also as the picture here shows that build also within that culture itself. We must have a teamwork, we must have strategy, we must have solution, must have motivation from time to time, and then all sort of ideas and planning and management and so on within that particular group itself. As I said, it just not necessarily within an organization. It can be within the organization. Inside the organization, there are small little group of research group that builds the organization. So with the smaller group, it builds the department builds the faculty builds the university itself. So the approach, the culture itself can be either top down or it can be bottom up itself. That's what I want to share about here. That's the first thing. The culture itself must be there before we even start talking about publication, research, writing, and whatnot related to this particular workshop itself that have been organized here. Right. So according to the World Economic Forum, this is part of the ways that could cultivate a better research culture. We should have, it can be started from here, it doesn't really matter in that sense. Engage, right? Engagement is very important within the institutional level, within the department, as I said just now, within the faculty, within the department itself, across the organization, across the department itself, and so on. So there must be a kind of engagement where we embed this culture either from top down or bottom up approach. And the second part, which is rather important, will be the second way that, according to World Economic Forum, will be the training, perhaps like what we are doing right now. The training itself to give the core members, the members itself, the team members itself, the proper training from time to time, to upskilling and to reskilling itself from time to time, so that and to build that kind of motivation to go ahead with what we call as doing research itself. And then within that, we have a role model, means that the team leader, the department itself, the leader must be very important to promote the excellence of research culture within that particular, it either can be a group by itself, it can be a small group, and then it can be the department itself, the faculty itself, or the university itself. And the fourth way is talking about open discussion, right? Where it can start very small steps, but this small step can make a big difference, right? The open discussion to foster more collaborative environment within, as I said just now, it can be within the group, within the department, within the faculty, and within the university itself. And it puts some expectation, perhaps everyone on the same page, or what you want to achieve, what they want to achieve, what the department want to achieve, and so on, in terms, again, to promote collective and collaborative kind of research. And sharing is very important, again, like related to training. The sharing itself, like what I'm doing right now, I would say that it's a kind of a research culture or research cafes sharing on publication and whatnot, what is the best practice itself. And support system itself is very important to support the whole research culture. This is to cultivate it, to nurturing a better research culture within the university, or within the department, within the faculty, or within the group itself, right? That's the first part, to enhance or to motivate or to build or even to nurture the research culture itself within the organization, right? Or inside the organization. So what is IMRAD? IMRAD actually is a short form for introduction, methodology, which is methods, results, and discussion, and certainly conclusion later. This is the main ingredient or the main parts of a research paper, started off from title up to references, certainly, but the IMRAD model is a IMRAD. is called introduction, methods, results, discussion, and the conclusion. We go ahead one by one. Always when we write an article, when we write a research paper, remember that even scientists or even researchers like to tell a story, write a story, tell a story. People love story. So it's like how we can write our research as if it's like a Cinderella story. And the kind of thing. Cinderella story is just an example of it. It can be any type of story. And any publication, any research that we do have their own story. Tell the story. Write a good story line so that the reader will be interested to read what we're trying to do. Right? That's the parts of it. So we started off with the I, which is the introduction. So the introduction itself explain why it's important, what's the rationale of doing it, what's the motivation behind, what's the objective, what's the hypothesis, is any. Right? Some of the papers or publication, they do not write the hypothesis inside the introduction. It can be in the methodology and the rest of the or it can be in other section or even in literature review some. So what's the rationale? Why we need to do this research? Why this research matters? That's rather important to start off with, to kick off your paper, to kick off your paper, to build the research itself. So introduction is very crucial. So the whole, not just introduction, the whole part of it is very crucial itself. And for this part, continue on with what from this first part is that you can start it off with something like you cited some influential studies and link the paper to what you want to do and how the paper itself, how the research itself would be able to contribute to the literature. Right? If needed, provide some statistics or real world example. If provide some data, plot some graph if needed in the introduction. I mean, not necessary, because most of the time we have in publishing research paper, you have limited page number. So a limited page number, which you might, in the end of the day, perhaps the introduction will be like 2-3 pages maximum, depending on the journal that you're saying or journal that you're targeting. But most of the time it's such a way. All right, so you can do that in one way that you cite, provide some citation who perhaps can be as one of the potential reviewer for your paper, right? So most of the time, journal editors would send the research paper to the one that the author cited in the research paper. All right. So do not have a long introduction section. About 2-3 pages are sufficient, but it depends on the journal format, as I mentioned just now. Right. Again, go back to what we want, why you want to do the study. Motivation is important. Highlight it in the manuscript, highlight in the paper why you need to do this research. What's the motivation behind? Are you trying to solve a problem? Are you trying to contribute to the existing debates of the literature? Do you use a new perspective, a new data set, a new kind of theoretical model, maybe an empirical model itself? So perhaps it's a different direction of how people seeing things, right? The motivation is very, very important, especially introduction itself. Provide evidence why it is interesting, because most of the time the paper get rejected because the paper is boring. The paper is not interesting, according to the editors, according to the reviewer. These are some collection of rejection reason that I've been collected for numbers of years. One of it, the main one, not most of the time, will be on the paper is not interesting because everyone else has done it before. So why we need another paper to be added into the literature, right? So that's the first part. The second part certainly is about the literature. Some research journal or some journal actually do not require this section of literature review. Some require, some do not require, depending on the format of the journal itself. Some actually embed, some actually put the literature review inside the introduction. Some journals do that because that's part of the format. And either you put it inside introduction or you have a separate section review of literature or literature review is very important because it shows that how we are familiar with the literature, and this can be a kind of judgment towards the editor, towards the referees itself, the potential referees, what you know, what we have not known, right? And in that sense, how we improve the understanding and perhaps you improve the literature itself, right? And cited those who relevant for you. Don't cite everyone, right? That's relevant, that could be. And this is what I'm trying to say just now. Do not include all published paper. Be selective. Include those reference that is up to date. Up to date, certainly. I mean, it's rather important, but do not include everything, every research paper that published on the topic itself. Include those relevant, the one that very relevant to you only, right? And the other part is that do not list or summarize the literature review finding. Just summarize it, but without any proper, effective transition or discussion itself. It should be very crucial itself. It talks about this, and then the other paper talks about this. Not just a summary. This paper, this is the result. The next paper, this is the result. But there's no transition. There's no connectivity between the research paper. Itself. So literature review, the authors, the reviewer and the editors want to see the connection and the write-up. Like I say, the first part just now, write a story. Even in the review, write a storyline so that people, the reader would understand what actually you're talking about. This is just one example to show a proper write-up of introduction and literature review, perhaps. Right? This paper published in Tourism Management, one of the good top journals in tourism itself, management itself. And the title is about ethnic food consumption intention at the touring destination. And the application actually is, the application of this actually, the ethnic food and the ethnicity, the ethnicity that they apply actually is what available here in my place here in Sarawak, in Malaysia here, in the Borneo Island here, where the tourists try this Dayak food. And then the perspective of the tourists. So the first part is that this is a very local issue. The food itself is very local itself, but the tourists come to this particular side of the world, try the food, and then they have their perspective, and this is how these particular studies are all about. So if you see the background of the study is like this is one page. The second page just highlight on it. They just talk about, they started off with ethnic food and become widely popular attraction for tourists and so on, and then started off slowly talking about exotic food, talking about gastronomy tourism, and then after that it goes into Dayak food, the signature indigenous Sarawak cuisine among the local international tourists. Just one example is right? And then the second page is actually already the literature review. So they started off with literature review, the review on ethnic food and tourism. How does tourism and ethnic food are related? Food that we eat, the consumption of the food, and then they have the section on the theoretical side, which they use a famous theory that adopted in numbers of papers on theory of planned behavior, the TPB, and a lot more other literature that they cited here, right? Although I mentioned in my previous slide just now, you must have a very updated literature, but never forget the classic literature. Classic means that those perhaps started off the literature, started off the theory. Never forget that, because they're still relevant in that sense, right? So that's the part one and the two parts of it. Now we go to the M, the IMRAT under M, and this is under methodology, stat and explain methodology they are using. Do not be repetitive. If the methodology is quite standard in the literature, we don't have to explain that more in the paper anymore. We just cite proper article because it's already there and briefly summarize. If the method is quite new, then we explain them in much more detail. Right? You must mention in the methodology section that how the methodology could help to accomplish the objective, right? What sort of methodology that is suitable and why you need to use that method. Why do you need to use that method? Is there any alternative methodology? Why you using this particular research methodology, so on, right? And then most of the time, the hypothesis will be defined here most of the time, and then the next one in the methodology, normally we have a section called data description. What sort of data they're using, what sort of frequency. This is more towards quantitative. If you do qualitative, certainly you need to still explain the data, but there will be no sample period, there will be no frequency, and so on and so on. But so whether you do quantitative or qualitative studies, you still need to explain the data, how you get the data, where you get the data, the collection of data, where is it from, and so on and so on. What sort of sampling methods that you're going to use if you're using primary types of data or qualitative types of data. And then further on, if you're doing quantitative, perhaps you want to show some descriptive statistics in the preliminary results rather than the real result itself, right? And then we move to the section called R, right? R, results. As I said here, report this part, this section, report the result professionally in a complete table. Ensure that the table is table figures or whichever that shows the result, or even some infographic would be self-explained result. Means that the table is self-explained, the figure is self-explained, or even the infographic is self-explained. What the self-explained means that you draw a table, you use the table, ensure that all the tables, all the abbreviation, all the variables, perhaps abbreviation that you use, the result that you use, if those who understand, for example, statistics, especially in quantitative, when they see the result, they know, they can expect what sort of result interpretation, rather than reading the text. That is called self-explanatory. Do not and never, never copy and paste from the statistical output. Do your own table. That is originality is there, right? Clearly state the relationship. Perhaps you want to link to the previous literature and so on and so on. This is in contrast, this is consistent with who and who. So that to show that you know the literature and you know that your results actually are quite similar or contrast with the literature itself. Avoid long and boring table like this. Avoid a very crowded table. Avoid vertical line in the table. Avoid so many lines here. This makes the whole table very complicated and crowded, except if the journal that you are sending requires you to do this type of table. Other than that, please just ignore the vertical line. Just have this horizontal, but perhaps only one line up here, the second line here, and the third line here. For example, like this, I just show you this one article published in International Review of Economics and Finance. Just to go here, this side, they focus on how they describe the methods and the methodology here, how they talk about the variables, the sample. These are using panel analysis. Right, banks 21 transition economy with this sample period, right? And they have this control variable, they have this model, how they write the model properly. These are the variables, the source of data. This should be put in the paper to describe. And this is the result that I mentioned just now. This is how we present the result in the self-explanatory table, right? So this, you see, do not have the vertical line like this, so it's not crowded by itself. So it's just one line, second line, and the third line. That's it, right? And this is the result based on the 6 different model, and 6 different model. I can read it clearly. 6 different model, and the asterisk here shows the significance of 10%, 5% level, and 1% level. And the standard error are in parentheses. So all these are self-explanatory. Do not need to read the text, the full text, to know more about the table, except you want to know some interpretation and so on. Other than that, those who understand this methodology, understand this kind of presentation, when they read, they understand, they know what is going on. Right, let's go self-explanatory. Again, this is a result here, this is another result here. And this is another example of how, from another paper, how they put up their variables and the sample period, the variable that they use for the analysis. All right, and the data description down here. And in and the last part, right? The last part, this is not conclusion yet for my talk. This is just the part of the INRAD model. IMRAD. Right? D, there's now discussion, and result discussion. And certainly you need a conclusion. The clear conclusion section would help editors and reviewers to judge our work easily. Keep it brief, state the key conclusion, summarize, avoid cite if possible. If possible, avoid citation. And then what you found, and then what's the implication for the study. Implication, discuss implication. You see, according to the theory, solving some certain issues and the implication do not overstate the finding. Right? It must be based on the evidence, and most of the time we will suggest some future research. And future research from the research itself. This is my finding. This is my research. This is my finding. This is the implication. This might be a good policy implication. But then again, for future research, you can the future research can do this, and this. Enough. And most of the time will be conclusion will be like a page itself, or less than a page itself, depending on the journal formatting itself. Right? And then when you finish up writing a paper, the next important thing is to craft the abstract. Write the abstract. Because abstract normally will be just 150 pages, 150 words to 200 words, not pages, 150 words. So you have a very short section, perhaps up to six sentences itself, or less than that. Most of the journals would maximum have 200 words, some even less than 100. If you send to the kind of journal who only accept a very limited words, right? Abstract is a sneak preview, an advertisement for your paper. So it's very, very important, right? And most of the editor, they will read the title, they go through the title, go through the abstract, and they can decide already whether the paper is good to go, not good to go, to reject, or perhaps to send for further review. Right? Those journals that are receiving a lot of papers, they will just view on this, and then after that they will decide. Right? So it's rather important that abstract what shows your research paper. Is that right? So that's abstract. So the last part that I want to share with you, how to move forward from here, right? How to move forward from what the simple INRAD model that you can use, that adopt in any research paper, in any writing or research paper that you can use, right? The part moving forward would be like, I always believe in collaboration, especially that's why we cannot really work alone anymore in this world today, in the world today. We should be working we should collaborate with others. Perhaps this particular person, if someone that is good in writing, the other one perhaps is good in analysis, and the other one perhaps good in another thing. So you can collaborate and build the team and write a very good research paper. Right? That's part of collaboration that I will believe. So I have that with my friends around me. So we collaborate each other, and then we do research, we publish together, we grow and we flourish after that. Right? And all these are related. You collaborate, you do some research, publish, grow, and flourish itself, because that's rather important in the research world. Because despite in the research world, it's a big big. Research is something huge and so on. But I always believe that in research itself, the world itself is not that big as we always imagine, because we might know someone. We are friends of someone to someone. We are friends of this one to the of this one to the other one. So everyone seems to be connected with each other. So it's rather important to have that kind of collaboration, positive connectivity, so that everyone will move forward together, so that we grow together and we flourish together in terms of publication and research, right? So this will be part of the conclusion itself for the research talk here. I'll try to make it as short as possible, as concise as possible. The first part is about cultivate the research culture. Whether you have to do it in a top-down approach or bottom-up approach, both can be a good strategies. The IMRAP model is about promoting, right, a good introduction where you have motivation behind a proper methodology, how you're going to discuss your result and discussion, right? And then in the end of the day, you're going to have a conclusion and abstract as part of the advertisement of the paper, right? And the third part, the third bullet there is about publication takes time, so plan ahead. Plan ahead. You must have a planning. Like next year, like right now is towards the end of October. Tomorrow is the last day of October. So means that we already have planned ahead of 2023, what you want to do, what papers you want to write, and so on and so on. It's no longer 2022. It's planned ahead. And it's good. It requires good planning, writing, and finding the right target journal. It requires patience. Long delays is not uncommon. Take your time with revision requests. You send to the journal editor send back to you to revise the paper so that it become much better. Sometimes it takes a while, sometimes it takes faster, depending on the journal, depending on the target journal, and so on. So it can be either you target the journal and then you write in accordance to the journal format, or you write first and then find a home for the journal. All right, and the last part is that in any research that we are doing, we always I always believe that we can retool research agenda for the sustainable future. Doesn't matter what topic we are doing, but we keep doing it, not necessarily using the same tool every time. Not necessarily just refers to methodology. It can be from the introduction up to the conclusion itself, right? Different collaboration produce different types of research and flourish and grow together. So different groups of researchers on different multidisciplinary will produce a different thing, and so on and so on. So retooling research agenda is rather important also for sustainability of the research and for the future itself. Right. So I will stop here as part of my sharing here. If you have any important research, I would be happy to answer some of it, and I can share these slides later. And again, thank you very much for having me today. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Professor, for the lucid presentation. It was informative and it was inclusive in terms of understanding the dynamics of preparing a research article, quality research article. Thank you once again, Professor. Now, the floor is open for the participants to ask questions, pose questions to or if you have anything to complement to the speech, you can do it even through the chat box, or when you can unmute and pose the questions. Yes.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Professor. Yeah, my name is Ibrahim Haruna. I'm a medical practitioner from Ghana. Thank you for your great outline of presentation. I mean, it's well it's well prepared. You could see that you have really prepared for this presentation, and I have learned a lot from your presentation. Thank you very much. My first question is the acronym that you gave, the IMRAD. What price do you pay for as a researcher if you don't follow this IMRAD method? What price do you pay for as a researcher, a scholar, a student? Do you pay for when you don't, if you don't follow this IMRAD? That's the first question.
You want me to respond to that first, Haruna?
Yes, please.
All right. This is just this is, I think it's for me it's a common model itself. Although we call it IMRAD model, but actually it's quite common. Actually, appears in any research paper, in any not just research paper. Even when you write your research, your thesis itself, your dissertation, you have this section. You have this particular section of introduction, methodology, and then results itself, and conclusion, and discussion and conclusion itself. So it's quite a standard thing to follow, except that if those format from the journal itself, the journal that you try to target, have their own very specific format, which do not require is to do so. Perhaps the journal itself, the journal says that we don't need this, we don't need this, we don't need that. But generally, these are the standard model or the standard appearance of a journal article itself, including thesis itself. So I guess that's the price. If you don't follow this, certainly you can. If, and like I said just now, if the journal allows or the journal format do not require introduction, do not require it to have this section or that section itself, and so on and so on. Right? They are such a journal. They are such a journal actually. But most of the journals have this kind of format. And I hope I answer you that.
All right, thank you. Yes. My next question is your presentation was more focused on research culture. Great. And you define research culture. I want to find out from you, what is the thin line between research culture and research ethic? If there is, what is the thin line between research culture and research ethics? Thank you.
Thank you for this particular interesting and very important question actually. I think there's a difference. I mean, there's certainly differences between ethic and culture itself. Ethic and culture itself. I think these two words are totally different, have different meaning and different implication in the end of the day. Research, I would say that this is my view, and this is my personal view. I might be wrong here. You might have your own view, and the rest might have their own view. I would say that research culture would be something more macro itself. Macro meaning that a much more bigger picture, while research ethics can be part of the culture itself. Can be part of the culture itself. The ethics can be part of the culture itself, right? That's what I believe. Perhaps some might believe the other way around, but I believe in such a way. So that define the differences between the both. So it's part of it, but it's not the culture itself. The ethics part. I believe that ethics is part of the culture itself. That's what I believe in. Thank you very much. Okay.
All right. So, implying from your explanation, it means that research ethic is a subset of research culture, right? Mathematically, research ethic is a subset of research culture, meaning that the research culture engulfs research ethics, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
If it,
And
yes. All right.
is there anyone else who's having a question?